Clay Patton on the Rural Radio Network. We're here in Olathe, Kansas at the Wheat Quality Council's annual meeting. And when it comes to the Wheat Quality Council, not only does it focus on farmers and growing wheat, but it also focuses on the millers and the bakers and that end product, the one you and I enjoy, whether we're making a sandwich or we're making our favorite dessert when it comes to baking in the kitchen. So we're going to focus now kind of more on the end product as well, how that ties back directly to what farmers are doing in the field. And so we're talking with Reuben McLean. He is with Graincraft. He's Senior Director of Quality and Regulatory for Graincraft. And Reuben, as we get started here, kind of give us an overview. Oftentimes when I'm talking to farmers, what we're talking about when we talk wheat, we're talking test weight, we're talking variety, we're talking protein content, maybe what they're trying to capture a premium at the elevator or something. On the backside of that, as a miller and then selling into flour to bakers and stuff, what are you looking for in a good hard red winter wheat?
Yeah, great question. I think you bring up a good point there in terms of the definition of the word quality. So depending on the audience or the individual involved, quality could mean very, very different things. And so to a producer, to your point, typically grain quality, things like test weight, things like protein content are typically what's referenced. But to a miller or a baker, quality is more tied to the finished product that's being produced, whether that would be buns, bread, tortillas, whatever the case may be. And so for a miller and a baker, quality really gets to water absorption. So the ability of a flour to absorb and hold water. It refers to dough strength and mixing characteristics, and ultimately that ability to produce an acceptable finished product and to be able to consistently produce that finished product day after day, month after month, year after year.
So it's interesting to think about what goes into it. And actually there was a conversation sparked here at the Wheat Quality Council's meeting is the fact that we know there's different types. Obviously Nebraska, Kansas, and our listeners, that's hard red winter wheat. But maybe you go over towards Ohio and they're the more your spring wheats, or you go up to the P&W. So there's different types of wheat there. So do you utilize those to blend to make more of that perfect flour for what your customer needs?
Yeah, so typically here in the Midwest, hard red winter is the staple class of wheat used for the majority of the white pan breads and buns in the United States. During years where, for whatever reason, largely Mother Nature, if we see wet, cool environments, typically we see elevated grain yields, which can often lend to lower protein contents and lower baking performance. And so during those kinds of years, millers and bakers may have to reach out to other regions, specifically northern regions, spring wheat, bring in spring wheat to blend up quality for the local hard red winter wheat crop.
What about a drought year like 2022? How are millers and bakers handling what was a very droughty crop last year?
Yeah, if we think about impact of drought on the various crops, my first thought goes back to the 2021 crop year and the spring wheat regions of the United States. Significant drought and heat in 2021. Which really resulted in reduced yields and elevated protein levels. For the most part, made it a little bit more difficult crop to manage. And looking at the hard red winter wheat crop, this past year, yields were certainly down because of drought, but it actually ended up driving a more normal baking quality. So we ended up with elevated proteins, just above 12% overall, which really resulted in a phenomenal quality crop in general.
As we move forward in the world, there's this push to know your farmer and to know where your food comes from. And Graincraft really recognizes the value that stands there, as well their unique position in the industry. And you briefly touched on it today, but it is it's the upstream innovation is what you've called it. And you're working with farmers so that way you can kind of tailor what they're growing with the varieties they're using to the end users, the millers, the bakers, as well as basically back into the consumer. How is this program working so far, and is it a positive for both directions?
One of the approaches that we've implemented over the last 3 years has been around the importance of preferred quality varieties. With the relocation of our corporate bake lab, the Graincraft Innovation and Quality Lab in Manhattan, Kansas, we have the opportunity to really pinpoint and evaluate genetics in certain regions. And what that's been able to do is as we take these preferred genetics, publish them on a preferred variety list and implement it in a preferred variety program, we're able to then tie bushels produced on a specific farm of a certain variety to an end user. And that level of traceability has been well received.
That is great to hear. Is there still an opportunity for farmers to participate in this, or is this something that right now you have your farmers and you're waiting to see how it develops from here?
Yeah, I mean, this program is something that we're continuing to try to expand. So certainly if there's producers that are interested in learning more, we would encourage them to reach out, find out more about the program.
Reuben, we appreciate all of your time walking us through it and really giving us the backside of it. Oftentimes with the Rural Radio Network, we're talking to farmers and we're talking about farms. We're talking about on-farm products. We're talking about what they're growing, the conditions they're growing. But it's interesting to hear the backside of it, the folks that process it back down into a consumable product. So we appreciate you being able to highlight and talk to us about all of this. Before I let you go, though, final closing thoughts, important information I've overlooked in the course of our conversation.
One of the things you referenced that certainly was enlightening for me is hosting producers in our Graincraft Innovation and Quality Lab. I would issue that invitation if anyone finds themselves in Manhattan, Kansas. We would welcome them to come to the Wheat Innovation Center and tour our lab. It's often fun to see